Armondo, what the hell, man? You dribbled.
Shut up!
That's awesome.
That's twice.
You know what? You actually,
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who identify as Concrud, welcome to Chattacon. This panel presented to you by Canon Publishing. The topic for this panel is the developing universe of Fallen Empire.
That's awesome.
so cool.
All right, so Chattacon. I am William Joseph Roberts. I will be moderating this panel for the Fallen Empire. It's a new series coming out by Canon Publishing, headed up by J.F. Holmes. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
Okay, well, you want to give the spiel?
Sure. So my name's John Holmes. I write as J.F. Holmes on Amazon. Don't try and look me up by typing in John Holmes. You'll be surprised. Okay. J.F. Holmes. And I am a fairly prolific author. Been at it for about 10 years and 8 years. And I run a company called Canon Publishing, which is kind of dedicated to helping out people who aren't super established as writers to get out there in the field. And we are working on a new project called Fallen Empire. This started almost a year ago when I think it was Lucas put up a little snippet of a soldier who gets discharged, and he's kind of standing at the gate in a futuristic setting, but standing at the gate wondering what to do next. And that has grown by leaps and bounds into a universe that is modeled after the fall of the Roman Empire, but it's an alien civilization which has been occupying Earth and various human planets for the last 500 years and has now fallen apart. And basically the various races are the barbarians living in the ruins of the empire. And we pick up the story from there, where there's been a very large war fighting over the spoils of empire. And now it's soldiers are being demobilized, and they are doing what many soldiers do after the wars are over. They go seek employment with the only skills they have, which is often violence. So just like the rise of the mercenary companies in Renaissance Italy, a lot of other historical examples in Africa after British colonialism. Basically, a bunch of history geeks have gotten together and written about mercenary units in the 27th century.
Okay. All right, and the first release in the Fallen Empire's universe was Irish Brigade. So you want to give us a little snippet of what that is?
Sure. The Irish Brigade, for those of you who don't know, see the flag back there. Okay. Famous 69th Regiment, and based out of New York City, fought a lot of battles throughout our history, starting in the Civil War. And I had ancestors who fought in it. And I decided that I wanted to name my mercenary company the Irish Brigade. So it's not just a bunch of Irish guys from a planet settled by Celtic people. It's aliens from various races, very eclectic, but the story itself focuses on several members of the brigade who are transitioning from that official military life to a much more capitalistic one, shall we say, and also on a young alien who would have been nobility in the empire, and he's trying to find his place in this new world. So my basic idea was to build a framework that other authors could start their own mercenary companies and write in there, and also further expand that to not just the military aspect of things, but to general life, and create a series or a setting for people to write whatever they might do. So it's not just going to be mercenary companies and war. It's going to be a lot of other things too.
All right. Let's see. Let's go around. Lucas, let's start with you.
Sure.
Tell us about your story, your company, how you're setting yourself up in the Fallen Empire.
Right. So going back to when John and I were kind of kicking this idea around, one of our free-flowing discussions, as it were, is and an ongoing fascination of both of ours is what happens when empires die? And I think that's a question that is salient on most people who are paying attention and sentient these days. But I think when it comes to the Roman Empire, we don't need to ask that because we know. So how do you extrapolate that into space? Well, okay, so let's kind of take the relics of an empire and the ruins of the Civil War, and what would survive. Well, I took the concept of a legion. We kind of modeled this on the Western Roman Empire, so I took what was left of a legion, and they were abandoned in place. Imagine if the Roman Empire were heavily engaged up in Germania, and the emperor decided, you know what, this war's over, we're losing at home, I can't get these guys out, they're on their own. And basically they were on their own. And while they were off on their own trying to stay alive, the empire fell apart. Of course, they wouldn't know that. They would hold the faith and kind of keep the flag up until they got back to wherever they thought was home. And then when they realized that not only had they been abandoned, there was no place to go home to, what would you do then? You have 500 or 600 heavily armed, well-trained, organized, and disciplined soldiers. And the only way you can make money is by saying, yeah, I know a guy who knows a guy who needs to be taught a lesson in a big way. And so that's where we took the concept of it. The Forgotten Legions, as they've taken to call themselves, are the remnants of 6 imperial legions that were cut off during what was left of the Civil Wars. They were duking it out in the trenches and in the mud on a planet that has little strategic value, but because, you know, empires are going to empire, they were fighting over it anyway. And when the Navy decided they couldn't come for them on either side, and then the treaties were written so they were deep in demilitarized space, nobody was coming from them. So they're going to have to sell their abilities to get themselves off planet. That's their backstory. So these legionnaires realize that the guys fighting across from them are probably closer to them than anybody else. They're going to rally what forces they have. They're going to do a couple of jobs, just a couple of jobs, you understand, just enough to pay our way off planet. And then we're done. We don't sell our swords. We're imperial soldiers. Well, one thing leads to another. Guys got to eat. And there's no empire to go back to. So that's kind of the premise of what my company is based off of, and kind of how I'm developing them as people. They are the relics of an empire that doesn't exist, faithful to an emperor and an imperium that abandoned them, but upholding the honor of their legion nonetheless. Well, mercenary work's dirty business, and you're going to get your hands dirty. So how do you maintain your honor, uphold the traditions of something that has long fallen, and keep yourself and your troops alive in this very chaotic, very violent new universe post fall of the empire? So that's the Forgotten Legions. They're yeah, I'd be a lot further along if I wasn't on a COVID response and had my books get derailed this year.
Okay. Who are you?
Well, there we go. So I'm Lucas Marcum. I am the author of Valkyrie and Valkyrie Rebellion, 2 novels published through Canon Publishing. I've got 6 or 7 short stories. I am a nurse practitioner by training. I'm a critical care nurse practitioner. My surgical intensive care unit was turned into a COVID ICU for the summer, and it was a long, rough summer. So we could go into detail about that later, but it was a very rough summer. And I am currently in the process of applying for PhD programs. So I'll be doing a lot of writing, but it won't be very much fun to read at that point. I'm also a major in the United States Army Reserves. I had command of a surgical detachment in a field hospital down in Maryland. And now I'm kind of trying to avoid being voluntold for a staff position because I'd rather do something else than a staff position.
All right. Let's see. Let's go with Ray next.
Make me unmute myself. Hello, how you doing? What would you like to know?
Well, introduce yourself and tell us about your Fallen Empire ideas, your story, your group.
I am Ray McCune, known as Sean McCune on Facebook. Basically, I'm a former Air Force veteran. 9 years, 3 days, 12 hours, 15 minutes, 32 seconds. Not that I was counting. I was stationed at Mine Air Force Base in North Dakota. I'm very familiar with the B-52H, KC-135, and a few other aircraft that they have up there, F-15C. And it was It was very interesting. Affected my life during that time that I was in North Dakota. My heart was captured by a lovely lady named Terry, and I ended up marrying her. And we ended up having 2 kids. They're both grown now, thank God. We've been empty nesters for about almost 3 years now. So both of them are doing well. One's down South Carolina, one's up in North Dakota, and they're both doing very well. I'm very proud of both of them. I started writing years ago when I was a teenager. Got involved in a lot of books, specifically things done by Jerry Ahern, the Survivalist series, several other books, including Larry Niven's Ring World, Star Trek, sci-fi, anything sci-fi, Space 1999, UFO, the early shows in the 70s and late 60s, early 70s, etc. That basically were on in the afternoons and repeated. Let me go get out of that rabbit hole here. My Fallen Empire story is based upon a Praetorian fleet, and my particular good guy, his name is Ronaldus Magnus, and he's the head guy of this whole group, and he needs to take care of some bad people, and in the end, the Empire abandons them, tries to actually sabotage them by setting them up to be destroyed and basically thrown away and abandoned. As a Praetorian fleet, they go directly to the Empress, which is the highest person. They personally are at her beck and call and do her bidding. But they try to call, they try to find out. They win the battle barely, and they try to call and try to find out. And through communications, they find out that it's over. Their part of being a part of the Empire is over, and now they got to look for a new home. And one of the things that they look for is a place that is alone, so they can basically go off, lick their wounds, and then heal up, and then figure out what to do next in life. Not everybody stays. Some people go, and they're allowed to go. They can stay of their own free will, or they can go of their own free will, and no harm, no foul. And they even make acquaintances and friends of the people that they were fighting, who were also double-crossed in the whole thing. And they end up forming the Black Snakes, which is an aerospace support wing. If you want something bombed, you can pay to have it bombed. If you want somebody to help protect you, do overflight, cap, CAS, you name it, they're willing to help you out. Of course, if you have the right amount of funds and resources and supplies and stuff, they'll be able to help you. A bunch of crazy pilots, as I kind of put down, and they are willing to do almost anything for cash. John Holmes is going to use a section of that. They also provide anti-air artillery, and I'm not going to get too detailed there, but they help protect your butt from other bad guys who have a craft that want to make you dead. Right now, I'm doing a lot of soul searching as to what the planet's going to be like. I've pretty much settled on a jungle world that was terraformed completely by the Empire before they abandoned it because they felt it was too expensive, and they left everything. A functional station, and some other things that are on the planet. But I mean, it just was there because they had the engineers who were terraforming the planet. That's pretty much where everything starts in the story, or at least at the beginning. Later on, when they're involved, Ronaldus Magnus also helps to be a part of and form a guild, but that's pretty much later on in their, this is going to be like several years later, as they've formed the group, and they're inviting people in to go to this rim world, so to speak, to basically be free of a lot of the stuff that's in the current bubble of civilization. A little bit freer. You can do a lot worse, but you can definitely do a lot better. And that's where it's going to be. It's going to be just kind of a, hey, come on in, stake your claim. We'll go from there. Work hard, help us out, that type of thing.
Okay. Rob, you go next.
Okay, I'm Rob Reed. I am probably the only writer right now writing in Fallen Empires who has actually not served in the military. My would-be military career began and ended at MEPS when I failed the eye exam and could not get a waiver. They're like, we're not going to let you anywhere near a tank. You can't see. You're blind.
I got one.
Yeah, I couldn't. I tried. I've been writing for about 30 years, mainly nonfiction, journalism background, newspaper reporter, magazine writer, copywriter, web content writer. Been writing for the gun magazines the last 6 or 8 years. Got back into fiction, which I'd really stopped doing for a while. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. Had a couple of stories published in Michael Z. Williamson's Freehold anthologies. Those were the first 2 sales I had. And then I just last August published a urban fantasy anthology. I had 13 other writers and myself in it. That did pretty well, and it turned out really well, actually. So that's my experience there. What's interesting is my story. I'm actually picking up some of the characters that John introduced in the Irish Brigade. I've got a new main character, but some of his characters that he introduced are going to be some of the secondary characters. And that's just, I find that kind of funny because I realized that the very first story I sold was in Mike Williamson's sword book.
Right.
I can't think of the name of it now. Forged in Blood.
Forged in Blood, yep.
And one of my characters in my story was actually introduced in John's story. I took one of John's characters and reused it. And I'm doing
I forgot about that.
here.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I've got is I've got a professional soldier, who was in the military before the forming of the mercenary companies, before the collapse, and then he becomes a mercenary when that transition happens, and he's one of those guys that is brilliant in combat but awful in garrison. I'm sure you're familiar with the type, the kind of guy who earns his stripes and then gets them taken away again, and rinse and repeat. So he finally screws up bad enough to where he's literally drummed out of the mercenary company. And not only that, he's blacklisted. So none of the reputable companies will take him on. And this is the only thing he knows how to do. So then the question is, then what do you do? When none of the reputable companies will hire you, who else do you look to? And that is the non-reputable companies. I believe the phrase is Dark Ronin and things like that.
Gray Ronin.
Yeah, yep. Excuse me. And it's going to be interesting. I don't want to get any more into it because I don't want to give too many spoilers, but it should be a pretty good ride.
Okay. Mike, let's go with you next.
Okay. My name's Mike Morton. I am a retired Air Force major, 13S space operations guy. I retired in 2014, which is about 5.5 years too early to officially be part of Space Force. But I currently work as a federal civilian for Space Operations Command, so I am still nominally part of Space Force, even though I'm technically still in the Air Force as a Department of the Air Force civilian. But I can still get to work on a lot of fun stuff. I'm working on next generation command and control systems for our operational command and control centers. So I get to see and hear a lot of cool stuff. Unfortunately, I found out that that kind of constrains my writing. I can't write about anything in the near term sci-fi because I know a little too much about what's going on up there. So I have to look ahead to the 27th century, which is where John brought me in. He's published 2 stories of mine previously. I had one pure sci-fi and then another one in his Joint Task Force 13 universe. So now we're moving on into Fallen Empires, although still involved with JTF 13 through Hillbilly there, and hoping to get another book in that one. My story is about a completely different take from everyone else. I'm looking at the true space marines. So the guys that are involved in doing microgravity operations, these are the guys that defend ships, assault ships, stations, planetoids. They're the experts that work in zero gravity and in vacuum. And it takes a special kind of person because you spend a lot of time in a spacesuit and a lot of time in a closed-in environment. So you got to have the right mindset. You also can't be a super big person. These people are guys who are and girls who are the gymnasts, and they are the swimmers. They're the ones who have a very good sense of where their body is in 3 dimensions and are able to maneuver in those 3 dimensions and still keep an eye on what their task is. So my take is a company. It's called a Microgravity Strike Team. So think kind of Force Recon in the future. They were one of the first companies that was demobilized as an entire unit. And I took some of the lessons there from the post-Clinton era and also post-World War II era, going on the same take of, what happens when there's a massive drawdown and the government needs to redirect money elsewhere. So they decide, you know what, to make this peace dividend work, we're going to have to demobilize entire units. We can't just go piecemeal and figure out who wants to stay in and who wants to leave. And so my main character, he had to decide, does he take a promotion and move on up in the ranks in the now vastly reduced Terran Marine Corps, or does he go with his unit out into the wilds? And the story that I'm writing right now for John's anthology is going to talk about their decision to become a private mercenary group and continue their focus, their specialty on microgravity operations. And so my novel will take place in this demilitarized zone that was basically created at the end of the Civil Wars between the human and non-human empires. And it's massive space, over 100 worlds out there. I'm kind of visioning it kind of like the Wild West, right? There's a lot of small planets out there, a lot of small colonies. Almost none of them are self-sufficient, but there's also a lot of chaos out there. Pirates are left behind, remnants of the Empire fleets, and of course, the Gray Ronin types, the ones who just don't play nice with others and think that they can use force to take whatever they want. So my guys will be out there. They'll be defending the stations, be defending ships, going after those pirate bases and taking them down, and along the way, of course, making friends so that they can continue to have contracts out there and have a base of operations where they can live out their future. Look ahead more than just a couple of years.
Okay. Armondo, your turn.
All right. Hi, everybody. Armondo. So a bit about me. If you're interested in seeing what I've written in the past, you can actually Google Sergeant Armondo Borboa, and you can find literally thousands of my articles and photos and whatnot of all the work that I've done for the Army while I was still in. Originally, I thought I'd be a writer back in high school, back in the Stone Ages of the late 80s. I won a few scholarships and awards for my writing, and then Desert Shield, Desert Storm kicked off, and I just decided the writing can wait, and I wanted to jump out of airplanes and shoot bad guys. So instead of taking up a scholarship, I joined the Army, and I had a pretty spectacular military career. Even though John makes fun of me for that I always mention it, I really did have a great career. Airborne, Air Assault. I had all the cool guy badges. I used to run marathons for fun. I was on a winning team for the Baton Death March. I was checking off all the right boxes, and I know if my career had continued, it would have been amazing. But then I got hurt on a deployment, and that's where everything changed for me. I ended up in the hospital up at Fort Lewis, Washington, MAMC, it's called, and I was there for 11 months. And pretty much my command, when they got home to California, forgot about me. Myself and a few other guys were up there, and nobody called us, nobody checked up on us. We were on our own out there, and I just decided if they'd had enough of me, I'd had enough of them. So when I finally got out, I relocated to Oregon and joined the National Guard here. And I was on a medical hold, waiting to see what would happen to me. The nature of my injuries dictated that I'd never be infantry again. I'd never jump out of airplanes again. It just ain't going to happen. So while I'm hanging around, a sergeant major, somehow or another, he got word that I'm a writer. So he put me to work as a PAO, public affairs, for the battalion. And a whole separate military career was born for me. And that's what I started doing for the next 12 years. Writing, taking photos, doing interviews. Basically, I was promoting the 40th Infantry Division in Oregon. And we got on the national news a few times, and this was my life. I loved it, doing two of the things that I loved, being a soldier and writing, taking photos and all that other good stuff. But like all good things, it eventually comes to an end. So I retired, and I was bored out of my ever-loving mind. And I was used to being able to write something and having an audience of thousands pay attention to my words. And suddenly the only thing that I can get published are a few funny Facebook anecdotes that I posted every once in a while. Well, John eventually got tired of me complaining about being bored, and he said, hey, I've got a project, I want you on it, and I don't want to hear you complain about being bored anymore. And now I'm here. My experiences in the military pretty much are informing the story I'm working on. My main character is like me, and actually like a lot of the guys here. Our units forgot about us. The Empire forgot about us, and he got betrayed, and then went away, came back because his sense of duty wouldn't allow him to walk away, and then he got betrayed again, on and on. There's the story. And a lot of what I write is what I did in real life, but in space. So I think I bring a sense of realism to what I'm writing about, but I guess that's to be decided by the fans if they think my stuff is realistic or not. But I'm really enjoying this project. It's I don't know. Saying that it's made me feel alive again is too strong, but I'm definitely having fun with it. I'm back to where I love, which is pounding a keyboard, writing stories, saying good stuff. So yeah, that's it.
Okay.
What's your story about?
Oh, well, like I said, it's my actual experiences, but in space with a lot of spin. So my main character, he gets betrayed again, but he just keeps coming back for more because his sense of duty won't allow him to walk away from the Empire as it's falling apart. So that's the story, is him one last time putting it all on the line for the good of humanity.
Okay. And I am William Joseph Roberts. I write a little bit of everything: sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and anything the evil mind squirrels demand of me. My entrance into the Fallen Empire, if I can get them both done, is going to be twofold. I started on one story with my sapper team that they were just complete civilians that are miners. I grew up in the coal fields of West Virginia, and those are some of the toughest people that I know. You don't piss off a coal miner because they're going to cut you, and they don't care, and they do what it takes to get the job done. But in the process of working on that story, I ended up coming up with another idea, and now I've got the 5th Air Combat, the Air Combat Brigade, the 5th Fists, that they're just trying to survive. I mean, they're trying to make a buck in the universe after everything fell apart. Running transport and running some gunships. So running air support. And you can kind of tell the Air Force guys in the group who are running air combat coverage between me, Ray, and Casey.
Maybe I should switch mine up and make mine a field medical mercenary unit. We show up and patch holes in people. Actually, now that I think about it, I could probably pull that off.
Well, now, Casey Moores isn't here, but he's got an air recovery unit, the Fixers. Who else are we missing?
Right now, that's working on stuff. Bill Frisbee's kind of tentative. I haven't had a lot of contact with him. Marissa Wolf is hopefully going to come on board because she's a great writer, and I think she'll bring something different to the picture. And that's it for now. We're hoping to expand as things go on, but I'm not trying to bring on too much of those. You know what I'm saying?
But I've already read through Casey's story. It's a really damn good story, and he's running recovery operations. They're transports, and they're go snag this equipment and bring it back, and
rescue people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Casey is a former C-130 pilot for search and rescue. So again, he's kind of dropping in on the things that he bases his experience on. Most of my experience in the military was as a light artilleryman and in light. So really, I think all of us are kind of touching on things that we have experience with. Rob, you're a firearms expert, so I expect really good things out of that too. So one of the things I want to touch on, and if this is okay with you, I don't know what to call you other than Hillbilly.
Hillbilly works. Most people know me as Hillbilly, so it's okay.
One of the things I want to give kudos to the guys for, and one of the things I want to touch on, is actually world building itself. One of the big things about Fallen Empire, like Four Horsemen, or I'm trying to think of some of the other co-written novels.
Galaxy's Edge.
Galaxy's Edge. Who's it? Anspach does that?
Yeah.
And your Fallen World.
Yeah, Fallen World with Chris Woods.
Right. So it's kind of the new thing that's coming out in science fiction. All these guys have been basically letting me annoy the crap out of them by telling them, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you're violating the world precept. But like I heard Sean say something before, and I'm like, oh, nope, gotta slap that one down. Right. They've been really good about it because this is a collective effort, and I set the world up, but the details are being filled in by you guys, right? So we have our own, so to speak, and it's 50 something pages now, where we collaborate.
You're cutting out.
Sorry about that. Any better?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, but I got to put my ugly face closer to the screen. So, so we collaborate, and basically when each of us writes our story, we're going to be adding in, and a lot of our characters, like Rob said, he's using some of my characters as minor characters or sub characters, not the main character. Lucas has the head of his legion is old friends with Colonel Mager, who's the Irish Brigade, right? Mike graciously wrote me a short snippet to have his unit appear in an assault on a space station that the Irish Brigade was doing. So it really is a collaborative effort. Any of you guys want to chime in on that?
Well, me and Casey were working on one little bit with the Hatfields Hooligans, my sapper team, where they're in need of cover, and they know the fixtures and they call them up, but they're busy and that's just not their thing. Given air support, they're more running rescue and stuff. So they send, They tell them, oh, well, go check these guys out because they're over in Hubtown on this planet. And that's where they come across the 5th. So I'm cross-connecting with that. And I was actually going to cross-connect into Ray's bunch, but their guys, they cost too damn much. Just can't afford them. So got to move off to somebody that they can afford. So I'm bringing a little bit of information into it from the other places. I think I mentioned the Irish Brigade, and I mentioned another ground assault team that I don't even remember. I just made them up.
Yeah, you know, getting back to what John was saying about bringing it in on a shared universe, one of the things that this reminds me of is the old BattleTech novels and how you had many, many different authors writing in that universe. Now, obviously, that was based off of a game first, but there you go. But you know, we get to be on the ground floor on setting the stage for, you know, this is what these guys are operating with, and this is the equipment they have, and you know, the alien empire, the Grassuans, they were big into bioengineering, so we could get to kind of play around with you know, how do we adjust animals and creatures to serve our needs. Casey came up with some really scary spider creatures that they're being used to hunt down pilots. And I did some research and I found a species of squid that has an adhesive on their dorsal side. So I, you know, took that forward in the future, modified those, and the Marines in the strike team, they carry those in little canisters, and they've got cameras and comm relay strapped to them. So when you need to peek around a corner, you throw a squid at the corner, squid sticks to the wall, and now the camera's broadcasting down there, and you get to see what's down there. So there's all sorts of opportunities on how to expand this universe, and you know, with all these great minds coming together, sometimes it gets a little crazy in the Bible, but eventually things settle out, and we establish, all right, this is the way it is.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing to make this a bit different is the Empire's technology is much more based on genetics, and their subject races are limited to a technological level pretty much where we are now, maybe a little bit advanced from that, but there's no heavy network stuff like that. So the after the fall of the Empire, this crazy mishmash of genetic modified things and new technology or old technology that they're trying to recover. So we're trying to do things a little bit different.
But hey, John, talk about what inspired also some of this writing, you know, with Jerry Purnell, Falkenberg's Legion, David Drake, and Hammer Slammers.
Oh yeah, I've been a huge fan of Hammer Slammers since like I first picked up the book back in the '80s, probably, right? I met David Drake at LibertyCon, and I was such a freaking fanboy. I probably drooled on him like Armondo, but no, I love that kind of stuff, and a lot of it is what inspired me to join the Army. You know, those paperbacks that came out and they were dog-eared and tattered in your library, and that was the only thing you could get back then, right? So those guys really nailed it, kind of what combat was like, the down and dirty. It wasn't glory stuff. It was, you know, pretty blunt and brutal. And I've always wanted to kind of bring that back, right? Lucas said, I'm a history nerd and I love the Roman Empire. And Lucas actually has what's that coin on your desk?
It's a coin from 63 BC, I think, from the late Republic.
Really wanted to steal it from you, but
yeah, don't touch.
Is it a denarius?
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
So you know, I really wanted to kind of, history repeats itself. It always, and I thought if we can make the same similar situation, but some of those things have been done before, and I wanted to make it different. So we're having a multi-species empire, and the humans really the heroes and the head honchos of things. So it's really going to be kind of different.
Well, I'll tell you what I really like about this collaboration. It's interesting the way the dynamics work. At first, you know, everybody had completely different ideas, of course. I want to go this way, somebody else wants to go another way, but we're really starting to mesh. As an example,
yeah, John's yelling at you a lot less too.
What's that?
John's yelling at you a lot less too.
Yeah, there is that. So
yeah, well, there's some mediation involved there.
But at any rate, so like somebody will come up with an idea, just the germ of an idea. Hey, wouldn't this be cool? And then everybody starts piping in. their ideas for, how can this work? And then eventually somebody takes the lead in it and writes up something, and we all agree on it. Throw in our own 2 cents, modify it so that everybody's happy, and then it goes into the universe Bible. And it's really an amazing thing to see if you've never done it before, like me. I've written a lot, but I've never done a full book, much less worked with a group of authors. And this is just amazing, the way that this is coming together, the how people are working together and how they collaborate. It's definitely a unique experience.
It's been a lot of fun, and I think that all of us have learned a lot on how to do stuff. And I've learned a lot as an editor, not just a writer. I mean, how to get you guys to work together. And I really appreciate, your willingness to listen and to take guidance. And, when I say no to something, then not get all pissy. Okay, let's work around it. So what we're going to do is, after the Irish Brigade, the next thing that's coming out is we're going to do an anthology with some origin stories and some not so origin stories that explore the world of the Fallen Empire. And then after that, we'll be dropping a book every couple months or so. I think some of us are further along than others. For example, I have nothing written about another novel because I have other books to do too. And this is going to be a long-term project. Hopefully this is going to be around for years and years and years. That's the potential of this. And then Disney will call us up and say, hey, we really like your series, and here's $1 billion, and we're going to make it into the next Mandalorian, and I'll give you each like 10 grand, and I'll just take the rest and head off into the sunset.
Well, the guy's got to have dreams, right?
Remind everybody who you are and where we can find your stuff. Ray.
Oh, okay, me. Hi, Ray McCune. I live in the Midwest. I have stories in these 2 anthologies. You can find them at Amazon.com. Look for Canon Publishing. Here's the titles for you. I have 2 stories in this one story in this one, and they're all good. In fact, a lot of these stories that are in both of these, you got to read them. I mean, the guys who wrote these stories, I mean, they put a lot of details in there. They put a lot of thought, and they put a lot of themselves into the stories, and that's really what shows. And really, really good writing.
Armondo.
Okay, well, Armondo Borboa, and as I said before, I haven't been published, like the rest of these guys have, other than through the military. So if you want to see what I've written before, just Google Sergeant Armondo Borboa, ARMONDO, 1 A, 2 O's. If you do 2 A's, 1 O, you're going to end up with a totally different dude, and let's just say you don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Say it isn't so.
I'm looking forward to putting out my first book and contributing to the anthology, and then starting to build my book resume just to match the rest of these guys, a bunch of overachievers. I want to get up there with them.
All right, Mike.
Got to find the unmute button here. All right, so Mike Morton, I've got 2 stories through Canon Publishing. One JTF 13 Origins novel. The other one was the Fall Sci-Fi Anthology. I'll be putting the short story in the Fallen Empires Anthology coming out here soon, and then with a book to follow later on this year. So look for me on my Amazon authors page. That's under Michael Morton. But yeah, looking forward to playing in this and keep playing in JTF 13 as well.
All right, Lucas.
All right, Lucas Marcum. You can find my stuff on Amazon. I've got 2 published novels, Valkyrie and Valkyrie Rebellion, which are both very good. The 3rd book hopefully will be out this year. Like I said, my life kind of got derailed by COVID. It consumed pretty much everything I had just to keep my head on straight this year. I should have some stuff coming out here within the next 6 months or so. I owe John an IST novel about the IST team that goes into Philly and tries to recover some assets down there. John and I are working on a new urban fantasy where the elves invade the contemporary world. And if you imagine the beauty of the elves from Lord of the Rings with an attitude like the French aristocracy right before the Revolution and the cultural sensitivity of the Nazi Party, that's about what our elves are like. Needless to say, the encounters don't go well. But it's getting
He's
interesting.
not wrong.
No, it's getting interesting. The orcs may end up being surprising allies if you can peel them out from under the lash of the elves. You can find my stuff on Amazon, and if you read one book of mine, you get the fall sci-fi anthology and read the story called Damage Control. It's about a crippled ship in space and a young enlisted sailor's attempts to just survive. And I had a very strange experience doing research for that. I found myself reading German damage control manuals from the First World War and reading about the Battle of Jutland, and it's very strange, but it ended up being a really good story. So if you pick up one of mine, you pick up that anthology and read Damage Control.
Okay, Rob, you're muted. See, I expected that from Armondo.
Yeah, you're a professional. You're not allowed to get away with that.
I have my page on Amazon, Rob Reed. I've got a website, Rob Reed Writer. There's nothing on it yet, but it will be up soon. My work has been in Forged in Blood from Michael Z. Williamson. That was my first story. Freehold Resistance has another story of mine. And then I just published this in August, Supernatural Streets. It's urban fantasy anthology. We have 14 stories. We got some really good stories in here. I'm really proud of it. I was a co-editor and publisher, and I did write a story in here called Nighthawks, which is basically a couple of ex-convicts. One's a dirty cop and one's a outlaw biker, are recruited from prison to fight monsters.
Okay. All right. Holmes.
Yes, sir. My name on Amazon is JF Holmes. Sorry, I was actually just zoning out there because I'm writing Fey War stuff as we speak. I'm on Amazon, JF Holmes. I have about 20 books out there. My main series is Irregular Scout Team 1. And I also, which is a post-apocalyptic military thriller. And I have Invasion, which is a rebellion against aliens who are occupying the earth. That's a 3-book series. IST1 has 12 books, I think now, maybe 13, can't remember. I've written several other books in various genres, working on the 3rd book of a series about a U.S. infantry brigade that gets cut off on Alpha Centauri. And I'm working on the Fey Wars with Lucas. I'll be doing the 1st book and he'll be doing the 2nd one. And obviously working on Fallen Empire. And I just nonstop. I just keep putting stuff out there. So, and I'm enjoying working with Canon. I've dialed things down a little bit back this year and turned over JTF 13 to Three Ravens Publishing because it's kind of more along their line of things, which I really appreciate there, Hillbilly. And the best part is of this whole experience is getting to slap Armondo down when he gets too big for his britches. I mean, working with developing writers that can get the guidance and the use of my experience that I didn't have when I started. I kind of made this stuff. Oh, look, I made him leave. Dude.
Well, he dribbled on his shirt again.
Oh, don't cry. So
all right, John, keep it up.
All right. Throw that all the way from
I got
come on over here.
for you.
Come on over here to the West Coast, to the East Coast. Anyway, so the best part, as I said, is giving guidance and helping develop so that they can succeed without having to go through all the what the hell am I doing that I had to go through because I really did not know. So, and also to provide them the venue to publish so that they can focus on writing and not have to deal with all the crap like advertising and stuff. So we're hoping to, some of us might go to Fantasy, right? Mike, you're going to be down there. Rob, I don't know if you're going to be there.
I'll be there.
Yep. And hopefully we'll be at LibertyCon if that happens. And I'm looking at possibly going to Gen Con or finding another con that's open towards the end of this summer. So if you want some good fiction, not just military fiction, but any kind of fiction that tells stories about people, not, the stories themselves are about people. And that's what makes them great. Go to canonpublishing.us or check any of us out on Amazon.
Okay. And I'm the moderator, William Joseph Roberts. You can find my stuff at williamjosephroberts.com or at 3ravenspublishing.com. And that's all we got for tonight. Thank you, Chattacon, for having us. Ray, would you like to take us out with one of your announcements?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining Chattacon and joining the Fallen Empire, a universe coming out from Canon Publishing. Thank you so very much, and have a very fantastic rest of your day.